Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching NDTV and this is the Newsbreak. With Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla referring BJP MP Nishikant Dubey's complaint against TMC MP Mahua Moitra to the House Ethics Committee and the panel swinging into action, all eyes now are on this panel of 15 MPs who constitute the Ethics Committee. This is the panel that will decide the Parliament's tolerance for such allegations raised against its members, and will they initiate any action against Ms. Moitra is being keenly watched. Remember, Mr. Dubey has accused Ms. Moitra of taking bribes from businessman Darshan Hiranandani to ask questions in the Parliament. As of now, the committee has not just called Nishikant Dubey but also the lawyer Jai Anand Dayadrai to submit evidence against the allegations they have raised. Mr. Dayadrai is a Delhi-based lawyer who runs a law firm here that has handled many high-profile clients. He is the one who submitted a detailed complaint to the CBI, and Mr. Dubey's letter also quotes his research. Now, this is a serious matter as the charges are critical of the MP breaching her parliamentary privilege, letting in an outsider take control of a Lok Sabha login, and also accepting gifts and favors that raises moral and integrity questions on her position as a representative of people. Now, Ms. Moitra, of course, has responded to these allegations and said that the Speaker should first probe the multiple breach of privileges pending against BJP leaders first before initiating any motion against her. But she's also yet to respond to some critical questions that this episode raises. First, how come 50 out of 60 questions that she asked were just linked to two corporate houses? Why did the MP seek a gag order from the court against the media and also sue the complainants if the charges had no merit in them? What are the security threats of sharing login credentials to someone who's not an assistant or team member, and does that compromise the confidentiality of parliamentary processes? We have a panel of guests with us to discuss these unanswered questions. Lawyers Nikhil Mehra and Ashwini Dubey and Jitin Jain, who is a cybersecurity expert. Thank you all of you for joining us. Mr. Jain, I'd like to go to you first. What are the larger security implications of sharing Lok Sabha login with somebody who's not part of your team?
I think, look, every government servant, parliamentarians, politicians, bureaucrats, they do share credentials with their personal staff, but they are only their personal secretary or personal assistant, or at best, a very senior member of the research or intern team. Now, randomly sharing your login credentials, that too of Lok Sabha, when you are a member of standing committees in Parliament, which has got confidential briefings given by secretaries of different departments, I think it is very unlikely. And even if she has done it, then giving logins to random people who are not even a part of team, and that too when the allegations are made that these people belong to certain corporate houses, and this was done in exchange of, for some money in lieu of bribes, I think that raises a very significant question. However, this can be investigated by figuring out the IP address details from where all the account of Mrs. Moitra's Lok Sabha was accessed. And also, she could be asked to give a list of people which she has shared the accounts. So suppose she says that she has given her credentials to 5 people in her team or staff, their CDR details could be asked and their tower locations could be fetched to figure out whether, except those 5 to 6 people whom she is claiming, whether there was any outsider or an unauthorized person or an entity which has used her login credentials to access her account. Now, what activities was done after logging in using that unauthorized access? That is a very separate question and different story altogether. Whether they were just logins, they were used to those unauthorized logins were used to draft some questions or access certain classified briefings. It remains a matter to be investigated.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Jain. I know you have to rush. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Nikhil, let me come to you next. How do you see the Ethics Committee asking for Mr. Dubey and Mr. Dayadrai to submit evidence against the allegations they have raised against Ms. Moitra? How serious do you think these charges are?
Well, these are extremely serious charges. These charges of a similar nature have been the basis of a criminal investigation and a charge sheet. For 11 MPs who did the similar thing in 2005, that charge sheet was accepted by a court in 2017. There was no caution against it. The root of this is a judgment of Raja Rampal. This was in 2007 in the Supreme Court, which held that a parliamentarian is a public servant. There are several judgments, starting from the bribery case, the JMM bribery case in relation to the no confidence motion against Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's government, where the scope of privileges in relation to statements made in Parliament has been greatly reduced. So if you are asking questions that are based on bribes or emoluments that you've received, you fall squarely under the criminal offences under the PC Act, and read with the charges of conspiracy, those who have bribed you will also fall under that act. And it appears Mr. Dehadrai, being a lawyer, is well aware of this, because the subject matter of his complaint to the CBI actually incorporates all of those sections. So he's aware what he's saying.
Right. Mr. Mehta, so you think that there are also legal implications to this if the charges are proved to be correct?
That's what I'm trying to get at. So, see, there are two elements here. One is this Raja Rampal judgment that I referred to actually dealt with the power of Indian Parliament to expel an elected representative of Parliament. That's not a small thing. Imagine this. You won an election, you represent a constituency. Can you be expelled because of certain actions that you've committed in Parliament? And the emphatic answer was yes, you can be. These are privileges that Parliament can figure out for itself. Now, the Ethics Committee was established in the 2000s. Its procedure is that it will draft a report and will table that report before the House, and then subject action will be taken. But besides that, what I'm pointing to is, even if the Ethics Committee hadn't taken a step forward, this can, in any event, be a criminal charge. And that is why he's written to the CBI.
Right. Right. So that makes sense. So, Mr. Dubey, taking forward what Mr. Mehra is saying, what kind of probe do you expect the CBI and IT Ministry to initiate here? Because while Mr. Dehadrai has complained to CBI with all those details, Mr. Dubey has sent a separate letter to the IT Minister, Ashwini Vaishnav, seeking a separate inquiry into this use of logins. So how do you think CBI and, of course, the government, the IT Ministry, are going to look into this issue?
Because it is a breach of privilege. Article 105 grants certain immunities to a member of parliament when any question is asked inside the parliament, and that question is related with the public at large, with the people of the constituency the member of parliament represent to, or is there any other issues which are, being a parliamentarian, somebody asks. Moment those questions, it comes that there is a illegal gratification or allegation of illegal gratification or corruption or any other charges, and then ethics committee tomorrow, if reaches to the conclusion that the questions which has been asked by the member of parliament was in lieu of the gratification or for the vested interest of a person who was having the business rivalry or business interest, or the login ID and password was compromised with the person who was not authorized to access it. And that has to be because 15 members committee has been constituted by the Lok Sabha Speaker, because we should not forget that the question has been asked a place where the constitutional immunity is available to the member of parliament. So the first and foremost thing is that the ethics committee, if comes to the conclusion that yes, there are allegations as substance, Mr. Dubey's allegations as substance, and she has used her parliamentary privilege to give benefit to someone, then of course there may be, which happened in 1976 to Subramaniam Swamy, 1972 to Indira Gandhi, and also in 2005 to Cash for Question scam. Now the second, Article 105 mentions two privileges. One is the freedom of speech in parliament and right of publication of its proceedings. But moment if that freedom of speech is subject to any political benefit, political motive or hidden interest, then the committee will examine one, whether there is a breach of privilege. If yes, then what is the nature of the breach and what were the circumstances which led to such a breach. And after that, either matter may be referred to the police authorities to take action. What has happened in 2005 case when corruption gratification charges were labeled, charges were framed against those 11 members of parliament. And now also pending inquiry, the Lok Sabha Speaker may recommend suspension of the member of parliament by the time what we have seen in earlier, but that exclusively depend on the wisdom of the member of parliament. And also we should not forget that allegations have been labelled by the same member who is the member of parliament, Nishikant Dubey, who knows the pros and cons.
Right.
So let's see. Yes.
So, Mr. Dubey is actually, you're hinting at possible action against the MP. That is also a possibility, is what you're saying. Mr. Mehra, generally it is the privilege committee that takes note of serious issues, but here the ethics committee has sprung into action. So, do you also agree with Mr. Dubey that there could be actually serious consequences for the MP in question here?
Look, that's what I began with by saying. We can go up to expulsion. There's no doubt about that. It can go that far. The 11 MPs against whom the allegation was raised that they took cash for the cash for query scam, the famous cash for query scam, they were expelled. And that power was upheld by the Supreme Court in the judgment in 2007, that these are powers that exist with Indian Parliament and that they have every right to expel in these circumstances.
Right. Mr. Dubey, one last question to you. So there is an MP in question here, and she's been accused of taking bribes. But, the allegation here is she took bribes for asking questions. Now, that is going to be difficult to prove, right? So how do you think the probe is going to pan out in the coming days?
See, this case is little bit different from what was happened in 2005 because there was an evidence in the form of the videos and the sting operation at Kerala. Here, only the questions have been asked, is to be asked from the Mahua Moitra and also Mr. Nishikant Dubey that what evidences do you have? And also the CDR, the IP addresses. So there are direct, indirect circumstantial evidences which would prove that yes, there was some allegations. The allegations have some substance, but so far as the illegal gratification and the alleged corruption charges are concerned, if those alleged corruption charges are concerned and what she has received, I have read that iPhone or certain other valuable gifts were given to her. And if it is proved that those valuable gifts were in lieu of asking question in the parliament, then of course she should be in trouble and she is in trouble. But as of now, see, by cross-examining her, by cross-examining other material witnesses, if ethics committee reaches to the conclusion that yes, there is the allegations have been proved, then only further action should be taken against her. Because as of now, since the high power committee is already appointed and there is a separation of powers, even the notices which she has issued to the NDTV, Times of India, India Today, other media houses, that has done premature as of now.
Right.
Because if it is proved tomorrow that the allegations are based on the truly stated facts, then those notices will go on. Right. So as of now, it is a premature stage for sending notices. Means that you have become offensive. You are trying to terrorize legally. You want to terrorize somebody that, look, you don't come forward. Otherwise, you have to follow the law of the land. But the law of the land is only available when allegations which have been labelled is found to be untrue.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Dubey, and thank you, Mr. Mehra, for joining us.